The moment the female lead delivered me to the male lead's bed, I awakened the memories of being the villainess. At this time, the female lead hadn't been reborn yet. Obsessed with the second male lead, she refused to marry the male lead, but the arranged marriage was inevitable, so she secretly drugged us and brought the elders to catch us in the act, intending to break off the engagement. I regained my senses at the critical moment and fled in panic, but now, thinking of my tragic fate later, I gritted my teeth and lay back down. When the door was forced open, Jack James and I were in disheveled clothes, in a compromising position. Today's banquet was originally meant to discuss his marriage to my half-sister Susan Smith, but instead, he was caught in my bed. No one's face looked good. Susan pretended to be pitiful. "Sister, how could you do this? He's your future brother-in-law." My father's face turned livid as he strode forward to slap me. "Shameless creature." Jack, still bare-chested, hastily grabbed the pink blanket piled around his waist, wrapping it around me as I curled up in his arms, just in time to block the slap my father was swinging. He hinted at something with a faint tone. "I have no shame. Is this how the Smith family treats their guests?" My father still relies on the James family for financing, so he could only suppress his anger and force a smile. "Of course not." He turned his head to glare at me. "Get down here now. Look at the mess you've made." I clutched the blanket in front of me tightly, my head bowed low, my face pale. "Susan, you said Jack was no good, begging me last night to just play along and ruin the arranged marriage with him. But how did I lose consciousness afterward? That glass of wine you handed me." I suddenly looked up at her, my voice rising, then abruptly cutting off. The room fell silent, several pairs of eyes fixed on Susan. I used to be weak and incompetent. Following her every command, she was emboldened, certain that I would silently accept this false accusation, but now my sudden change has caught her off guard. She never expected that I would reveal the whole truth. "What nonsense are you talking about?" She forced herself to stay composed, her stern expression belying her inner panic, as she lunged to cover my mouth. Truth be told, my way of shifting blame wasn't particularly clever. But Susan had gone too far. Her infatuation with the second male lead, Frank, was common knowledge in their circle, and she had always been half-hearted about Jack. Everyone present was sharp. They understood everything without needing further explanation. My father closed his eyes in frustration, his disappointment palpable. "Susan, you've really let me down." The banquet hadn't even ended yet, and scattered guests were now gathered outside my door, whispering and pointing. These people were originally the witnesses Susan had brought to publicly shame us. Now, they'd become the very ones making her feel utterly humiliated. My father and stepmother forced smiles and told lies to placate the guests, trying to minimize the impact of the incident. But gossip is a fearful thing. What others say is beyond their control. Everything that followed became inevitable. Jack and I have set our wedding date, though the wedding came about hastily. The James family did not skimp on the preparations. The wedding dress sent over was high-end, custom-made, elegant and grand. The jewelry and gold ornaments were exquisitely crafted, emitting a dazzling brilliance. I stand before the mirror, gently tracing the intricate embroidery on my wedding dress. I want to live, not die in humiliation. Perhaps my sudden change of direction was the right one. The door creaks. I looked up and locked eyes with Susan standing at the door. She sneered sarcastically. "Sis, you're so happy picking up the trash I threw away." I lowered my gaze, staring at the priceless Logan blue sapphire on my ring finger. "No, Jack is not trash." It was Susan, the pillar she desperately tried to reclaim in this life after her previous one ended in poverty. I curled my lips. Let's wait and see who's truly blind. After the wedding ceremony, Jack and I returned to the bridal suite. He loosened his tie and stood under the light pouring water. The warm yellow light slanted across, climbing up the bridge of his tall, straight nose. A tiny droplet escaped from the corner of his lips, bobbing with the movement of his Adam's apple. Scratch. It was the sound of a glass rubbing against the coffee table. I just realized I had been lost in thought. He pushed the water toward me and said, "It's getting late, time to rest." After a 2-second pause, I replied, "Okay." Only after seeing me nod did he head toward the bedroom. He paused at the doorstep, then turned and walked to the left. "The master bedroom is here. I'll sleep in the guest room." His aloofness was expected, but if I wanted to protect myself by using his influence and avoid the fate described in the book, I had to find a way into his heart. I can't just be a nominal Mrs. Song in name only. But now is not the time to be impatient. Watching his retreating figure, I pondered in my heart how to turn the raw rice into cooked rice. I entered the bedroom to prepare for a shower and go to bed. When I came out of the bathroom, boom, a flash of lightning split the sky, and thunder exploded right beside my ear. My heart skipped a beat, and a scream escaped my throat. One after another, silvery flashes of light rendered the sky murky and indistinct. Viewed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the landscape trees appeared menacing and claw-like. Panicked, I didn't even have time to put on my shoes before knocking on Song Jingzhou's door. He opened it almost immediately. His pajamas hung loosely, his hair still dripping slightly. What's wrong? My body trembled lightly, my eyes reddened. There's a heavy storm. The thunder is a bit loud. Suddenly, another dull thunderclap. I quickly covered my ears and threw myself into his arms. Jack's body froze for a moment before he wrapped his arm around my shoulder. He helped me to the sofa, his hand brushing over my back, hesitating briefly before giving 2 light pats. I'll sit with you in the living room for a while. The window had been left slightly ajar, and the breeze slipped in through the gap. The hem of my nightgown fluttered lightly against his knee, the sheer fabric brushed against his pajama pants, winding and swirling. All was red. He shifted his legs, bending down to lift the hem of the fabric. Reaching up, I neatly adjusted my collar. I instinctively covered myself, suddenly realizing a large area on my chest felt unusually cold. It must have been overlooked in the earlier panic. Just then, the sound of rain began to fade. Jack stood up, his voice steady. It stopped. Time to sleep. His warm wrist brushed past my shoulder. No, I seized the chance to grab his hand and looked up at him, tears streaming down my cheeks. It's definitely going to rain again soon. He lowered his gaze, looking deep into my eyes. I sniffled, entwining my fingers with his, and said, I'm still so scared. Will you stay with me tonight? His dark eyes, hidden behind metal-framed glasses, gazed at me with an inscrutable depth. We returned to the master bedroom, where 2 distinctly separate quilts lay on the bed. He turned off all the lights, plunging me into a suffocating darkness where I could see nothing. I tossed and turned in bed, wanting to speak but biting back my words, not sleeping. As I turned onto my side, my movement was a bit too abrupt, accidentally pressing against one of his arms. Outside, the sound of thunder gradually rose. My heartbeat quickened slightly as I wrapped my arms around that same arm, slowly letting half my body weight rest against him. Even if Jack were the most obtuse and least interested in women, he would know what I intended to do, not to mention, we were legally married in the first place. In the darkness, his hand slowly moved upward, pressing against the corner of my mouth, gently caressing. Another loud bang. In the faint light, I saw his deep eyes. His scorching breath crept inch by inch across my skin. I'm giving you a chance to regret. His eyes were like an abyss, dangerous yet captivating, drawing people to throw caution to the wind. My gaze wavered before steadying again. With a determined heart, I wrapped my arms around his neck and whispered softly, husband. He flipped over, taking the dominant position, his thin lips brushing past my forehead and cheeks, then moving downward. Within that tiny space, warmth began to spread. I can't catch my breath, my lips parting slightly. Suddenly, he grips my chin and invades deeply, seizing all my air. I don't know how long passes before he finally releases me, but this is only the beginning. He held my waist tightly in his grip, as pieces of clothing fluttered down to the ground. The rain poured down in torrents, droplets drumming against the window like an endless symphony. The room was as warm and enchanting as spring. I was washed ashore by the waves, over and over again. I want to say something, yet he presses down tightly on my arm, bending over to catch his breath. Tears spill from the corners of my eyes. Suddenly, the phone on the nightstand rings. His chest rose and fell as he frowned, his long arm reaching out to touch the edge of his phone. A crack tore through the haze in my muddled mind. Before my eyes appeared the title of the first chapter from the book, Rebirth on a Rainy Night. It must be a call from the female lead. There was only one thought in my mind, I can't let him answer this call, so I struggled to prop myself up halfway and grabbed his outstretched hand. Don't answer. The phone spun around and rolled farther and farther away on the ground, and once again, I was pulled into a dizzying vortex of darkness, rising and falling. After it was over, I leaned against the bed in a daze, taking a long time to recover. Jack had already carried me to take a bath, so I felt relatively fresh. When my feet touched the ground, my legs felt like they weren't my own, and my whole body seemed about to fall apart. Jack wasn't in the bedroom. I bit my lip. Where had he gone now? Pushing open the bedroom door, I noticed a faint light coming from the kitchen. I slowly paced down the stairs. Half of his face was hidden in the interplay of light and shadow. His head slightly tilted back as his Adam's apple bobbed, the entire bottle of soda water disappearing down his throat. Beads of condensation dripped from the glass, tracing a path down his collarbone, lingering over those faint, ambiguous scratch marks. My cheeks burned, even though my hands were pinned above my head most of the time, unable to move. How could such marks still be left? His mind wandered off, failing to notice the cardboard boxes carelessly left on the stairs by staff members. Filled with wedding odds and ends, by the time his body tilted on the stairs, it was already too late. He let out a startled cry, desperately grabbing onto a railing. His knees hit the ground first. With a thud, it rolled down along with that box of stuff. Fortunately, there were only 2 steps left. I sat there panting, feeling a belated fear in my heart. Before I could even regain my composure, my body suddenly felt weightless. He raised his head and waved his arms twice in the air. His clothes were disheveled from the grasp. Jack's calm voice brushed past my ear. How could you be so careless? With unhurried steps, he carried me to the seat. Bending down, he gently touched my knee. He wasn't wearing glasses, perhaps unable to see clearly. Moving closer and closer, I curled my toes, unconsciously twitching them twice, and whispered, "It's nothing. Does it hurt?" He crouched down, his fingertips gently brushing over the skin on my knee, then looked up at me, my eyelids lowered. Yet I happened to meet his gaze, so close that our breaths seemed to intertwine. I tightened my fingers, not once breaking eye contact. The first time I openly observed him, only then did I realize his pupils were actually amber-colored. His eyelids were thin, with narrow, elongated eyes featuring an inner double fold. Removing his glasses didn't make him appear more approachable. On the contrary, it intensified his aggressiveness. The once deeply buried arrogance was now revealed without restraint. Ah, so cold. I instinctively stepped back, my arms bracing against the chair. Jack somehow produced an ice pack and placed it on my knee. "No need, it doesn't hurt." I felt slightly uncomfortable and tried to pull my ankle from his grasp. The refrigerator door was slightly ajar, its cool air slowly washing over my entire body. My throat felt parched. "Is there anything to drink?" He had me step on a low stool before getting up to open the fridge. "Something to drink, juice, coffee, or soda?" Leaning against the counter for support, my brain too lazy to think, "I'll have what you just had, but the bottle of this brand of soda is just too short." His large palm almost covers the entire bottle. No matter how I hold it, I end up touching his fingers. For a man and woman who have had intimate contact, even if they were strangers the day before, they've clearly done much more than this. Yet because our fingertips brushed for just a moment, we averted our gazes and fell silent. "Aren't you cold?" He suddenly spoke up, lifting his eyes to stare at my thin nightgown. His voice was hoarse. I couldn't utter a single word, watching helplessly as he added a few more ice cubes to his own glass of water. I didn't even have time to finish that sentence. The doorbell rang. Jack frowned and adjusted his collar. He then draped the suit jacket that was hanging on the sofa over me before slowly walking over to grasp the door handle. My heart was in my throat, yet, for some reason, I felt a wave of relief. Can't avoid it. What's meant to come will come. With a creak, the door opened. The person outside the door was exposed under the bright light inside the room. It was indeed the female lead. She carried the coolness of rain on her. Stray strands of hair clung to her cheeks, drenched from head to toe. She shivered intermittently. The entire sight was pitiful and wretched. Susan took 2 steps forward, looked at Jack, and tears welled up in her eyes before she could speak. Her tone was filled with remorse yet relief. "Jack, I know I was wrong. Frank is truly despicable. He squandered all the money, cheated, and was abusive at home. I was in so much pain. I went to find you but fainted at the company entrance. It was you who called the ambulance for me. I know you still have feelings for me. You must still care about me." Her eyes were filled with hope. "You'll forgive me, won't you? Let's make it work from now on." Though her voice trembled with fear, There was an inexplicable confidence in it. We will definitely be happy. My heartbeat gradually quickened, my gaze locked tightly on Jack. But Susan is the female lead. They're truly a match made in heaven. Would he really not be attracted? I slowly moved closer to them. The cold wind outside the door carried slanting fine rain, turning into droplets that pattered against my face. A suffocating silence spread through the air. Susan shivered, the hope in her eyes gradually fading as large teardrops rolled down her cheeks. She suddenly rushed forward, trying to hug Jack. I stopped in my tracks, frozen in place as I watched them. Jack's expression was uncharacteristically blank for a moment, as if he couldn't comprehend what was happening. He reacted swiftly, stepping back to dodge. Susan stared at him in disbelief. Thud, she fell hard. That hurts, Jack. Are you really that angry? Jack spoke bluntly. Miss Sue, I don't know how you suddenly have this extra memory, but I can tell you, no matter what was dumped at the James family's doorstep, I would take action. Tears welled up in her eyes as she tried to say something more, but Jack had already turned away, blocking her, and took my hand. Aren't you cold? Why did you come out? Stay away from her. She probably needs a doctor. It's fine. I shook my head, walked up to Susan, crouched down, and grabbed her arm, my nails gradually digging in. Susan, did you come to congratulate me on my wedding? But, isn't it a bit rude to show up in the middle of the wedding night? Get up, the floor is so cold. Susan's breathing grew heavy as she fixed her gaze on me, her eyes filled with hatred, her tone dripping with venom. I don't know why things changed in this lifetime, but you stole him from me, and I won't let you get away with it. I find it ridiculous. The me in the book clearly had nothing to do with them, but did she make life easier for me after her rebirth? Before long, hurried footsteps came from outside. A team of bodyguards appeared at the villa's entrance. Mr. James. I don't know how she got in. I apologize for our oversight. Jack pulled me up and shielded me behind him. Take this lady to the hospital, the psychiatric department. Susan was dragged away by the bodyguards, but her gaze remained lingering on Jack, seemingly somewhat heartbroken. I know you blame me and are angry, but it's okay. I'll prove that everything I said is true. Her voice was mercilessly blocked by the door. Ever since the female lead came, I felt somewhat distracted. The female lead's revenge in the book, which left me decapitated, constantly weighed on my mind, so much so that anxiety materialized into concrete actions. Before I could even react, the call had already been made, and this was already the third call I'd made to Jack today. I couldn't control myself. I always regret it the moment I dial, holding the phone. I want to hang up before he answers, but I'm always a step too slow. On the other end, he seems to close a folder, stand up, and say, "Let's stop here for now." Meeting adjourned. I heard him push open the door, his voice still gentle and low, perhaps a bit resigned. What's wrong? I absent-mindedly picked at the sofa. Sorry to disturb you. It's nothing important. I'll hang up first. Bored staying home alone. There was noise on his end, but my heart gradually settled. I guess so. Then do you want to come have lunch with me? He asked. The sound of car horns rose and fell on the road. And I suddenly felt as if I had lost my mind. Jack casually asked a question, and I couldn't wait to rush out. But since I'm already here, I glanced at the rearview mirror. Traffic was so bad that I had no choice but to keep driving forward. The phone placed on the center console suddenly rang. It was Jack. Are you here? I'll come down to get you. What do you want to eat? The company cafeteria has good food. Or should we go out to eat? After a moment's thought, I replied, sure. The James family's cafeteria is renowned far and wide. Today's a lucky day for my taste buds. We were almost there, so I slowed down the car, but just a short distance away, a small car suddenly emerged from a side road, running countless red lights. It came speeding toward me, my pupils contracted, my body frozen stiff. A loud bang. When consciousness returned, I was already lying in the hospital examination room. I struggled to open my eyelids, my heart pounding wildly. You're awake. The doctor beside me checked my pupils. Nothing serious. Have your family come pick you up? I don't know how long I was unconscious. Jack couldn't reach me. Did he think I searched all over but couldn't find my phone. It must have fallen somewhere. When I finally borrowed a nurse's phone and was about to press the dial button, Jack's tall figure appeared in the examination room. His face was pale, his steps hurried. no longer the composed and dignified man he once was. I put down the phone and opened my mouth to call his name, but it was already too late. He suddenly changed direction and walked straight toward a woman in a white dress. Through the hurried gaps in the crowd, I caught a clear glimpse of the woman's face. It was Susan. The smile on her face was no different from when she had been sitting in the car that had just charged toward me. Jack stood beside her, frowning as he scanned the wounds on her body. Susan's lips curled into a smile as she stood on tiptoe, whispering something inaudible. Jack showed not the slightest impatience, even leaning down to listen attentively. I stood still, leaning on my crutches, quietly watching them. Mia Smith, what are you doing standing here? The nurse hurried past me, tilting her head to look at the medical record in my hand. Has your family not come to pick you up yet? Jack suddenly looked up, following the sound, his dark eyes locking tightly onto me. I avoided his gaze and turned to find a place to sit for a while. The sound of footsteps behind me grew closer. Jack gave me a hand, half supporting me as he guided me to the chair. He crouched down in front of me, his tone serious. You should be resting properly. What are you running around for? I ignored him, my gaze falling on a spot not far away. Susan gave me a provocative smile and opened her mouth. I deciphered the shape of her lips. She said, "How pathetic. He won't love you. Even after what I did, he still takes my side." My throat felt like it was blocked by something, making even breathing difficult. What's wrong? Jack gripped my wrist tightly, ready to take me to the doctor. Are you in pain somewhere? I turned my head and pushed his hand away. It was Susan who hit me with her people. I'm going to call the police. He slowly released me, his expression gradually darkening, his tone suddenly turning cold. Let's go home first. The street was bustling with endless traffic, neon lights reflecting on the irises like strings of colorful bubbles. The car window blocked out the noise from outside. It was like two worlds, one extremely cold, the other scorching hot. Jack gripped the steering wheel in silence. The car slowly came to a stop in the underground garage. He reached out to hug me, and I didn't resist. The bright indoor lights dispelled the chill from outside. He placed me on the sofa, took out the first aid kit, and tended to the minor scrapes on my body. I looked up at him. His expression remained as cold and unchanging as ever, his movements precise and meticulous, yet I avoided his hand, saying, "I can do it myself." He abruptly closed the first aid kit. A crisp snap sounded. My heart suddenly contracted, and my breath halted for an instant. Without another word, he stood up, loosened his tie, took a couple of gulps from his glass, and opened the balcony door. The cold wind outside drifted in slowly. The wind made my eyes sting and my heart grow slightly cold. Holding the first aid kit, I hopped back towards the bedroom. The sound of a glass shattering exploded in my ears. He yanked me back onto the sofa halfway. He braced his arm on the sofa above my head, lifting his knee to part my legs. Leaning down, he pinched my chin, forcing me to look at him. There was a faint fury in his eyes. On the way to the hospital, I checked the surveillance and dashcam footage. You were driving under 30 miles per hour. You could have avoided her by braking hard. Why did you accelerate instead? What does he mean? Blame me for causing trouble for Susan? My tears suddenly fell. The fear from the car accident, the pain in my body, Susan's arrogance, and his indifference made the towering grievances in my heart burst out completely. I burst into loud sobs. Get away from me. Stay far away. I don't want you. Susan harmed me like that and you still won't let me call the police. The first thing you did when you got to the hospital was look for her, so concerned about her, as if your eyes could grow x-rays to scan her and see exactly how badly she was hurt, even whispering in her ear with your faces touching. I pushed him away desperately, tears streaming down my face uncontrollably, yet he cupped my face, pressing his forehead against mine, his voice gentle and soothing. Is it worth it? Even if it means throwing your own life away, if something really happens, even if you don't consider me, what about Grandma? Grandma, I blinked, brushing away a glistening tear from his cheek. Yes, Grandma, I brought her here from Jiangnan. Where is she now? In that sanatorium you always liked. It's so expensive there. It's okay, your husband still has a little money to spare. He chuckled lightly. Have you calmed down now? I took the tissue he handed me and nodded. All right. No rush, let's settle things one by one to make it clear. I curled up on the sofa, thinking I must have misheard. Shouldn't that be my line? Why do you always think I'd get involved with Susan? It's your own fault, I sobbed. Don't try to deny it, I saw it with my own eyes. I couldn't find you. She was the one who hit you and sent you to the hospital. Shouldn't I go and demand an explanation from her? But seeing her did make me feel relieved. I looked up, unconsciously crumpling the paper in my hand into a ball. Since she can still drag me into idle chatter, you won't be in any life-threatening danger either. Why were you so close to her? I couldn't let it go. Her speech was too slurred. I couldn't hear clearly and was afraid of missing any information about you. He explained it clearly and logically. The ball of anger in my heart deflated with a whoosh, and my ears turned slightly red. Not angry anymore, he chuckled, carefully avoiding my injured area as he carried me into the bedroom, his deep, pleasant voice murmuring in my ear, I've already called the police. I'll have the James family legal team handle this matter. I nestled into his arms. Susan was in the passenger seat. Can she be convicted? The man fell silent for a long moment, then suddenly tightened his grip on her hand. I'm sorry, I sighed. Honestly, keeping her locked up for a few days would be quite satisfying. Male lead's perspective. In the middle of the night, Mia woke up from her nightmare again. Jack was a light sleeper to begin with, his heart clenched, and he propped himself up to hold her even tighter. He whispered soothingly, Don't be afraid, I'm here. At this moment, she seemed trapped in another world, unable to hear his words or feel his breath. Her eyes were wide open, staring at the ceiling, but her pupils were unfocused. Tears streamed down like beads. Soaking the pillow, she hugged her arms tightly, curling herself into a ball, murmuring, Don't come near me, please, please, stay away from me. Her voice trembled with tears, filled with agony, as fine beads of sweat covered her body. Heartache spread through his veins like poison. Jack pressed his face against hers, feeling utterly powerless for the first time. He couldn't figure out what had caused her to become like this. He vaguely felt it might be related to Susan. After what seemed like an eternity, her breathing became steady and even again, but Jack couldn't fall back asleep. Afraid of disturbing her, he got up, pushed open the door, and poured himself a drink. The living room was pitch black, with only scattered lights visible through the window. The strong liquor burned his throat as it coursed down to his stomach. Suddenly, the phone on the coffee table buzzed with vibration. It was the company's lawyer. He stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, holding a bottle of alcohol. The voice on the other end of the phone was slow and subdued. Mr. James, 10 days in detention. Jack tightened his grip on the phone, an expected outcome, perhaps even longer than anticipated, but the resentment in his heart grew stronger and stronger. Dig deep into her, with her personality. It's impossible she hasn't crossed the line at least once. We're already investigating. But Mr. James, what if she really hasn't done anything? Jack lifted his eyelids. Then create the conditions to make her do it. There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. Yes, I understand. When I woke up in the morning, Jack was leaning against the headboard, working on his tablet. He propped up one leg, his posture lazy and casual. It was the first time I had seen this side of him, and my gaze lingered for a long time. When I came to my senses, he had already turned off the screen and had been watching me for who knows how long. He smirked and asked, Awake? Yesterday, I cried miserably in front of him, and this morning, I got caught peeking at him again. The awkwardness in my heart was impossible to ignore. My face felt a bit flushed, and I cleared my throat. Why haven't you gone to work yet? I'll be working from home until your injury heals. Jack put down what he was holding, getting up. Your clothes are on the bedside. Do you like this outfit? He reached out to help me up. I quickly dodged. Could you get me a glass of water first? His eyes were calm and deep, and his eyebrows seemed to twitch slightly, but he didn't say anything and obediently left. After the door opened and closed, I rolled off the bed, hopped on one foot, grabbed my clothes, and tried to put them on. Although we've already been intimate, I still can't bring myself to dress casually in front of him. I examined these clothes. Everything else is manageable, but the underwear, last night when I took them off, I felt completely at ease, but with a fractured right hand, it's impossible to put on with just one hand, too focused. I didn't notice the sound of the door opening behind me, nor did I notice the large hands approaching from behind. Is it hooked here? I got goosebumps all over. My gaze instinctively falling on the mirror in front of me, Jack lowered his eyes to stare at my bare back, seemingly curious. fiddling with the two dangling straps. His fingers, slightly calloused, brushed against my spine by accident, sending tingles from my back all the way through my body. I almost turned into a fully cooked shrimp. It won't hook, it's a bit tight, the last row, still tight, don't worry about it, just hook it. Because of this, I hardly dared to look him in the eyes all day. After dinner, I fidgeted with the throw pillow. When he passed by me again, I finally mustered the courage to grab the hem of his shirt. Jack, I absolutely must take a shower tonight. No, you can't get your wound wet. There's a risk of infection. He frowned, his tone firm and unyielding. Just wrap it in plastic wrap. I tried to persuade him. Instead, he turned his head and handed me a plate of fruit. The raspberries are quite sweet. Want to try one? In my desperation, I blurted out. If you're worried, just watch me wash it then. After a moment of silence, I wish I hadn't opened my mouth. No, He rubbed his temples and took off his glasses. Only 5 minutes, so you agreed just like that, I muttered, with all the prepared reasons left unused. He had already walked 2 meters away when he turned back to look at me, with such conditions offered. If I still refuse, wouldn't you just kick me out? Well, he had a point. I originally thought I could soak in the bathtub, and with a bath bomb, it wouldn't be so awkward, but that really would pose a risk of infection. Finally, I could only take a shower. He brought me a stool and turned the water to its lowest setting, and he stood not far away. Those 5 minutes were the longest 5 minutes of my life. The steam rises, and I close my eyes, feeling the water droplets roll down my flushed cheeks. Down, down it goes, by the time I step out of the shower. I've already composed myself. What's done is done. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. But then I ran straight into him holding up my underwear with his finger, examining it closely. What are you doing? The shell I just put on myself shattered, and I felt like I was floating in the air. It's left marks from being too tight. Isn't it really too small? Should we buy a batch of larger ones? How is this topic still not over? I couldn't take it anymore and pounced on him in a fit of rage, snatching the item back and clutching it protectively to my chest. Mind your own business. Jack stayed home with me for quite a long time. He didn't go back to work until I had completely recovered. The second day after regaining my mobility, I went to the nursing home to visit my grandmother. After the car pulled into the parking lot, I gripped the steering wheel with both hands, my heart pounding. There was a sense of trepidation as I approached my hometown. After my grandmother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, while she was still relatively lucid, she firmly sent me back to the Smith family when I was a child. She wouldn't let me go back. Even when she could no longer recognize people, she would still grab a broom to chase me out of the house whenever she saw me. After that, I could only peek at her through the window. Until today, I exhaled softly, pushed open the car door, and walked toward Grandma's room. Grandma was sitting on the balcony, basking in the sun. Hearing the noise, she slowly turned her body, her eyes filled with a mix of confusion and indifference. My heart ached. Grandma, Mia is here to see you. She still didn't respond. I moved closer to her, crouched down, and rested my head on her lap. My face felt icy cold. Grandma, I miss you so much. I couldn't help but sob. So many things have happened during this time. Even fate has changed along the way. But here, in front of my dearest ones, she will spread her arms to shield me inside. No matter the storms outside, the embrace is warm and cozy, making one drowsy. Mia, a pair of broad, gentle hands rested on top of my head. Mia, she whispered softly. She spoke again. I'm sorry, Kathy, I'm sorry. She rambled incoherently, tears welling up in her eyes. I held her in my arms, tears streaming uncontrollably down my face, my heart aching faintly. Kathy was my mother, who passed away many years ago, after my mother's death. My grandmother was never quite the same. She blamed herself for misjudging people, easily marrying my mother off to my father, David Smith, who deceived her both emotionally and physically. How could she have guessed it was just a game played by a bored rich kid during his countryside escapade? In any case, people in small towns were naive and didn't know about marriage certificates. As long as there was a banquet, it was considered a proper ceremony. He had no burdens at all, in the end. He grew tired of playing and abandoned his wife and daughter. While my mother died of depression, I stayed with my grandmother in the nursing home for a very long time, even falling asleep in her arms. On my way back, I shed all the fatigue I had been carrying. Little did I expect to be forced to stop by Susan on the road. She stood in front of the car, so I unbuckled my seatbelt and got out as well. Out already? I chuckled. Had a good time in detention, didn't you? Song Jingzhou went to great lengths to arrange special care for you. Her hair was cut short, leaving only a stub, with many bruises on her body and face. Looking at those who are locked up, they're all going a bit crazy. So quickly you've already won Jack over. You're just like your mother. Both nothing but sluts who only know how to seduce men. She glared at me, fury surged within me. I grabbed her by the neck, pushed her against the tree trunk, and slapped her hard twice. You're not worthy to mention my mother. Don't think you can bury the fact that your mother was the other woman just by making me younger and yourself older in the records. Back then, when your mother's family was on the verge of bankruptcy, she went to great lengths to track down David Smith and chased after him. I'll never forget how they shamelessly carried on in my own bed behind my back. If you want to be shameless, go be shameless with David Smith. If he could control his urges, none of this mess would have happened. Mia Smith was left dazed and dizzy from my blows, spitting out a mouthful of bloody foam as she stared blankly at the sky. Suddenly, she burst into wild laughter, her expression turning utterly vicious. Mia Smith, you can't win against me. I already know. This is a book, and I'm the true heroine of this world. Just watch. Jack will abandon you and return to me. I even had a dream last night. Turns out your ending is so tragic. In the end, even the corpse was in pieces. Ha ha ha, wouldn't you know it? I just ran into those beggars and that guy. He's got something that'll make you feel like you're floating on cloud 9. This is just a teaser. I've come up with some new games this time. Just you wait. I'll make sure you never see the light of day again. Drowning in endless agony, her lips parted and closed, the words that came out like the whispers of a demon. All those terrifying memories I had ignored came surging back. They carved themselves deeply into my mind like a slow-motion film. Those beggars leered as they cornered me in the filthy, cramped courtyard. The stench of decay clung to my entire body. Addictive drugs were injected in multiples through my veins, as she wished. I rotted in the filth, and Susan's reason for ruining me was bizarre and laughable, simply because she utterly despised the fact that my past self had once encountered Jack. Even though those unspeakable coincidental meetings and the ambiguous romantic rumors in their circle were all orchestrated by her, she forgot how desperate she had been to avoid the arranged marriage back then. Unable to control others, she could only bully me, even going so far as to threaten me with my grandmother, forcing me to seduce Jack and make him infatuated with beauty, to sever any possibility of Jack accepting David Smith's offer to betray her for personal gain. Yet later, her memory endlessly beautified herself, remembering only how I clung to Jack relentlessly. But except for that one time she drugged me, wasn't every instance I deliberately let her send me to Jack's side followed by me finding the farthest corner to quietly stall for time. Yet that book portrayed her as decisive in killing, preferring to execute wrongly rather than let go. I was just the stepping stone that elevated her. I released her, clenching my palms tightly to steady my breathing. Susan lay sprawled on the ground, her excitement twisted into something grotesque. Mia Smith, I swear I'll make you suffer a fate far worse than that. Ignoring her, I turned and got into the car, slamming my foot on the accelerator. Susan, do you know, it's been dragging on for so long. What I fear is that you won't be driven to desperate measures. Susan's counterattack came swift and fierce. She portrayed me as a gold-digging, vain woman on the internet. She claimed I would stop at nothing to climb the social ladder, even stealing Jack from her. She spent a fortune on promotion, ensuring everyone knew about it. Jack and I were surrounded by reporters with their cameras and microphones, unable to move an inch outside the James family's building. The cameras and microphones were practically shoved in our faces. Mr. James, how do you respond to claims that your wife married you only for money and doesn't love you at all? I thought he wouldn't answer any questions. He's left very few traces in the media over these years. This time, however, he turned and stared straight into the reporter's camera. Should I spend my money on her or on you? She doesn't love me yet because I haven't done enough. It's not her fault. His words struck like a hammer, leaving the reporters exchanging uneasy glances. By the time they came to their senses, we had already entered the building. The bodyguards were on high alert outside, but this was just the beginning. The Smith family held a press conference to let public opinion reach its peak. denouncing my immaturity and ingratitude in their narrative as an illegitimate daughter. I enjoyed over a decade of wealth and luxury that didn't belong to me. Yet instead of being grateful, I constantly compared myself to Susan and stole her clothes and jewelry, even her husband. Their performance caused a public uproar. Seriously, since when do illegitimate daughters act so brazenly? She married into the wealthiest of wealthy families. No wonder she's putting on airs. The offspring of a lowly woman is indeed lowly, copying everything shamelessly and stealing her own sister's husband. At the peak of the public outcry, I quickly registered an account, official verification of the James family group's Weibo account. I only posted one photo, a photo of my mother and David Smith during their wedding ceremony. Back then, David Smith tried to erase all traces of his presence to get rid of my mother. He even went so far as to set fire to my grandmother's house. When they made this plan, they certainly didn't anticipate this piece of evidence remaining. Grandma risked her health to keep it back then, carrying it close to her heart for decades, resenting it for decades. Although it's a black and white photo, the faces, the scene, and the shooting date in the bottom right corner are clearly visible. I sat in front of the computer, staring at this photo. Mom, I've cleared your name. Public opinion is gradually shifting. Am I seeing this right? David Smith and Mia Smith's mother's wedding date is 2 years earlier than the marriage certificate date shown at the Smith family press conference with his current wife. Wait, so who is actually the illegitimate child here? Is the photo real? How come Mia Smith was being criticized this morning, and now this photo pops up in the afternoon? It's been verified by experts, not photoshopped. I'll say this quietly. A relative of mine used to work as a maid for the Smith family and said Mia Smith was the family's punching bag, treated worse than the hired help. I was afraid of being called a troll this morning, so I didn't dare speak up. Are you all insane? Homewreckers deserve to be shamed. Why are you defending her? Yes, everyone should stay focused on the main point. Even if she's not an illegitimate child, she's still the other woman. Her mother is pitiful for not being acknowledged, but that doesn't justify her being the other woman. If you ask me, who knows what her mother was really like? Otherwise, why wouldn't she be acknowledged? Online, the storm rages with reversals, taking sides, insults, and curses. Susan couldn't bear to see my reputation improve even slightly, so she quickly started a live stream. On camera, she still had that uneven, choppy haircut. Tearfully, she showed the audience the bruises on her body. Not long ago, I accidentally offended my sister Mia Smith, and she hit me with her car. But then she turned the tables and had me thrown in jail. I still have many unspoken internal injuries from when they ordered the prison guards to beat me. Why did they do this to me? Susan cried dramatically and pitifully. The number of viewers in the live stream skyrocketed. Oh my God, is there no justice left? How dare Mia Smith do this? Why isn't anyone stepping in? Does money mean you can do whatever you want? Am I the only one who thinks the Smith family has already gone above and beyond? It's not like she's their legitimate child to begin with. Giving her food and shelter is more than generous enough. The comment above hits the nail on the head. Eating their food, spending their money, living under their roof, doing some chores is the least she could do. Since when does she get to play the victim online? Just as the internet's condemnation of me reached its peak, hundreds of Susan's bed photos suddenly flooded the web. The explicitness was jaw-dropping. Meanwhile, Frank's fiancée gave a public interview, broadcast live across the entire internet. Today I'm making a fool of myself for no other reason than to ask when my husband's dream girl will finally stop. Susan, I'm talking to you. Can you stop sending bed photos to my husband? She posted the chat logs between Susan and Frank. The language was explicit and shameless, at first glance. It seems like a pornographic story. There's even more fun to be had. She chuckled lightly. This is a recording of MS, Susan chatting with her friends, which I bought at a high price from the bar staff. Let's play it for everyone's amusement. She pressed the switch. I heard your family wants you to marry Jack. Don't even mention it. I'm so annoyed. Relax. It's just your dad's wishful thinking. Jack would never agree. What if he does? Ha. I sent Mia Smith to seduce him. If that bastard dares not to go, I'll cut off the living expenses for her senile grandma. Before I marry brother Frank, she must keep Jack occupied and ensure he doesn't have any chance of developing feelings for me. Frank is a playboy who loves to fool around. Are you really going to hang yourself on this crooked tree? I am his warm harbor, no matter how late it is. He will always come back to me. Besides, a prodigal's return is priceless. What do you know? Fine. As long as you're happy, but if I recall correctly, Frank is already engaged. It's just that his fiancée keeps a low profile. So what? The one who isn't loved is the real homewrecker. The entire internet was in an uproar. Damn, plot twist after plot twist. The one fighting the other woman turns out to be the actual other woman. You rich folks really know how to have fun, huh? Alright, being used as a pawn again. Time to bounce, watching the completely reversed comments section. I felt a sense of satisfaction. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Frank's fiancée, Meng Chi. Darling, my acting was good, right? Even though the lines were a bit nauseating, having to associate with that rotten cucumber Frank. But next time there's something this fun and profitable, you come find me again, okay? Moi, Susan used to treat me like a maid. She probably doesn't remember now that she's been reborn. But I know all her dirty little secrets. Maybe she's even forgotten she once sent such photos to Frank. How could I not seize this kind of leverage? The Smith family and Susan were completely devoured by public opinion, becoming pariahs overnight. With the company's stock in turmoil and business plummeting, my mercenary biological father finally tore off the mask of paternal love. To revive the Sue family business, he planned to marry Susan off to a thoroughly corrupt scoundrel. This would absolutely fulfill her desire to open her arms to a playboy. She is now being kept at home, ordered to stay put and prepare for marriage. This incident has become widely known, making them the subject of gossip in their social circle. But I still don't think it's enough. I gently traced my mother's features in the photo. Mom, soon, very soon I'll send them down to serve you like slaves. I heard Susan has completely resigned herself to fate. She agreed to marry and don the pure white wedding dress. Yet at the wedding venue, she stabbed the groom and fled. This news made me frown. I shook Jack's arm. Haven't found the person yet. No, they're hiding pretty deep. Will Grandma be okay over there? I was really afraid that if Susan couldn't find me, she might go after Grandma instead. Don't worry, I have people at the nursing home. Jack's tone was calm and reassuring, and I felt at ease, until that day. When I woke up from a nightmare, the face in the dream, with its unclosed eyes, gradually became clear. It was Grandma. I was drenched in cold sweat, panic instantly overwhelming my entire body. If Grandma truly suffered a torturous death because of me, I would never forgive myself in this lifetime. I couldn't care about anything else, got in the car, and sped away in a cloud of dust. But on the only road leading to the nursing home, my tire was punctured by a trap. The car window was shattered into fragments by a stick. I was also dragged out. Inside the shabby and dirty van, 8 men of various sizes were seated. The first thing they did when they saw me was burst into laughter. Damn, that woman wasn't lying. She's a real beauty. Lucky us, brothers. My heart pounded wildly as I forced myself to stay calm. Who are you? What do you want? What do we want? You'll find out soon enough. Ha ha ha. Hurry up and open it. Can't wait to see the beauty. If it weren't for that woman insisting we wait until we get there, I really want to right now. Their greedy gazes clung to me as if they had physical weight. Those unpleasant memories nearly surged up again. How much is she paying you to kidnap me? I'll double it. My voice was hoarse. Sweetheart, we're not in it for the money. The leader suddenly barked. Enough, gag her. Stop wasting words on her. Bribery didn't work. And my heart grew heavier. They took me into a dilapidated building. Inside was intensely bright, with countless glaring lights. The brightness forced me to shut my eyes. When I opened my eyes and saw everything clearly, my pupils constricted in shock. Inside, there was a massive bed, enormous beyond measure, and surrounding the bed were countless cameras. The 8 men behind me laughed lewdly and pushed me onto the bed. Susan walked over from behind them. She approached with light steps, looking at me and clicking her tongue twice. I could have just stayed home and watched the live stream, but I simply couldn't wait to see your agonized expression in person. My breathing grew increasingly labored. Now you're scared, Mia Smith, beg me nicely, and I'll make your death quicker, spare you some suffering. She pressed close to my ear, unable to contain her triumphant madness. I finally moved, smiling faintly at her. You shouldn't have come today, but I knew you would. What do you mean? Her expression twisted instantly into fury as she finally sensed something was wrong. The door was kicked open, numerous plainclothes police officers rushed in with guns drawn. "Get down and don't move," the officer coldly commanded, aiming at her. Looking back, she didn't know when it had happened, but the 8 men were already pinned to the ground. Trembling, Susan gasped heavily, pressing the knife against my neck. "You bitch! How dare you scheme against me like this, Susan? This is your karma," I chuckled softly. Susan held me hostage as she retreated step by step. They were too complacent and underestimated me, failing to even search my person. I pulled out the spring-loaded knife from my pocket as Susan was panicking, trapped by the encircling crowd. I raised my arm and drove it down with force, then yanked it out abruptly. Blood gushed out, and the excessive blood loss left her no time to react before I twisted around and pinned her in front of me. She collapsed to the ground, her eyes widening in shock. "Mia Smith, I'm the female lead, I'll be back." Did she think she would die just like that? No, living is the greatest punishment for her. Susan was taken away by the police. Jack's men stayed behind to clean up the mess, and he himself stood not far from me, silent. I suddenly felt so tired and reached out to act coquettishly. "Jack, could you hold me, please?" Just when I thought he wouldn't pay me any attention, he moved. He reached out and carried me away, his jawline tense as he stared straight ahead, refusing to look at me. Still angry, I wrapped my arms around his neck. He had vehemently rejected the plan to lure the enemy by using himself as bait, but I insisted on having my way. While sulking in frustration, he still coordinated personnel according to my arrangements. I nuzzled against his chest. "Jack, my original purpose in marrying you wasn't pure. Do you still want me now?" He stopped in his tracks, his tone fierce. "Now that everything's resolved, you don't need the old me anymore. Is that it?" "Don't say things like that." After a while, he asked again, "Am I satisfying you?" "I'm satisfied," I nodded vigorously. "Then I'll strive to keep you satisfied for a lifetime." Okay. Another heavy snowfall with goose feather-like flakes. Jack and I built a snowman at the holiday resort. Susan's verdict is out. She won't receive the death penalty, nor will her sentence be reduced. Among her cellmates is an abusive inmate who enjoys word games. There's also a murderer with acrotomophilia. The prison provided her with the best doctors. She will spend the longest and most painful remaining years of her life inside. The Smith family has also completely fallen from grace. The case of David Smith and his wife's financial crimes will be submitted to court for trial next month. As I watched the figure in the black ski suit ahead, stepping into the large footprints he left behind, I couldn't help but smile, my lips curving upward. I ran and bumped into his back. "Don't run, what if you fall?" Hearing his deliberately stern concern, I buried my face in his chest and closed my eyes, shedding the heavy burden weighing me down. I was no longer in constant fear and could finally devote myself wholeheartedly to the happiness of the next chapter. Extra chapter. First life. Jack was led into this bedroom. The drink from earlier, combined with the curling incense in the enclosed space, made the veins at his temples bulge and his throat parched. He stared at the trembling figure huddled on the bed. His irritation grew even more intense. He lifted his leg and kicked the table hard. The glass ornament on it swayed 3 times. A crisp shattering sound rang out, leaving the floor in complete disarray. The girl finally emerged from her turtle shell, yet didn't dare to look up at him. That glass of wine. Soft and husky voices intertwined. He leaned back on the sofa, legs slightly apart. "You started this, and now you don't want to take responsibility." Mia Smith clutched the sheets with her fingertips, her face flushed red. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I didn't know there was something in it." "All right, miss, you claim to know nothing. Then may I ask what I'm supposed to do now?" His eyes narrowed slightly. The purpose behind slipping him that substance was all too obvious, but she refused to touch him in the slightest. "That's quite interesting." He got up and walked toward the bed. Mia Smith's heart skipped a beat, and she finally turned her gaze to him. "You..." Suddenly, a commotion erupted outside the door. The blush faded from her face, replaced by panic in her eyes. She even fled in blind panic, and collided with Jack. He grunted, then chuckled lowly, walking right into the trap. Mia Smith pushed him away with all her strength, her eyes scanning the surroundings in despair. There was no way out. Her nose stung as she looked at the only openable window in the room. Closing her eyes briefly, she gritted her teeth and climbed out. She didn't hear the man chasing after her, nor the half of his body leaning out the window, nor the arms that missed the hem of her skirt by a mere inch. This matter was botched. Susan went out of her way to make life difficult for her. Before the hidden injuries from her jump that day had even healed, Susan had her thrown near the James family mansion. She was ordered to capture evidence of her mistake with Jack. The rain poured down in torrents as she crouched, hugging her knees beneath the narrow shelter of the bus stop. Her mind raced with calculations. How long would she have to stay with the Smith family to save enough money to send her grandmother to the nursing home? At one point, a shadow fell over her, muffling the clamor of the rain. Sensing something, she looked up to see a man in a crisp suit holding a black umbrella. His dark eyes behind gold-rimmed glasses unfathomable and deep. Jack drove her to the hotel. Upon returning home, he immediately sent someone to decline the marriage proposal with the Smith family. The other party repeatedly invited him based on the favor they had with the old man, making it difficult for him to keep refusing. Now it seems entirely unnecessary. As he wished, Mia Smith never appeared in front of him again. Yet, he felt somewhat restless, as if something was missing. His mood was terrible, with that awkwardness and restlessness stuck in his heart, unresolved, unable to focus fully on work. He simply agreed to his friend's invitation for a vacation. As the car was about to enter the expressway, he absent-mindedly glanced toward the roadside. With a screech, the car came to an abrupt stop beside the figure. He unbuckled his seatbelt, got out of the car, and strode forward to grab her. "It's so cold. What are you doing here?" That face turned towards him sluggishly. He wasn't mistaken. It was Mia Smith. Her eyelashes were covered with ice crystals, her body nearly hypothermic. He pulled open the car door and shoved her inside. The heater was turned up to the maximum, and he draped his own clothes over her. "What are you doing here?" he asked again once she had recovered slightly. Thrown out of the car. She didn't say it outright, but he could guess. The Smith family's dirty laundry from years back wasn't exactly a secret. He pressed down on the accelerator. The villa wasn't far now. She needs to quickly change clothes and drink hot water. Jack took the person to his own villa. The doctor was called to check and said there was no problem. He originally wanted to take the person back while it was still daylight, but the heavy snow blocked the mountain roads, trapping them there. At first, they kept to themselves, barely exchanging a word all day. Then one day, he watched her building a snowman with the children at the resort. She was so vibrant and full of life. He had never seen it before. Jack saw her ask the staff for skis and clumsily wobble left and right on the slope. He changed into his ski suit, slid down, and circled around her a few times. He taught her the methods and techniques of skiing. She still wasn't very willing to engage with him, only giving him sporadic responses. She gradually managed to ski down the entire slope, feeling somewhat excited and laughing out loud. Jack couldn't help but smile as well, watching the beautiful figure ahead. They were so happy that they didn't notice the faint glimmer passing and returning in the sky. "I didn't hear that eerie mechanical voice either. Holy shit. This small world is about to mutate. What's going on? Why is the romantic connection between the male lead and the female supporting character getting thicker? If the female lead's position changes, we'll have to report it to the higher-ups and monitor the situation for a long time. What a hassle. Enough. Rewind. Let's start over. According to the rules, I have to keep an eye on the progress all the time. This is so boring. The female lead is so useless. She can't even hold on to her luck. Might as well give her a golden finger for rebirth and put some restrictions on the male lead." Second Life. Jack was led into this bedroom, watching the woman's panicked retreating figure, his heart filled with disdain. As he stood up, he accidentally knocked over a decorative piece on the table. The crisp sound, though not loud, echoed in his ears like a muffled thunderclap. He frowned, feeling a subtle sensation in his heart. How could he have such intense emotional fluctuations toward a stranger so rashly? Jack and Susan's engagement was put on the agenda. That day, he went to the Smith family to pick her up for a date. In the living room, he saw a girl crouching to smooth her skirt, but she pushed him to the ground with force. The girl's long hair cascaded down, revealing a small portion of her fair profile. In that instant, he actually felt a stir of emotion and heartache. Susan ran toward him, a smile on her lips, her skirt fluttering in the air. She twirled in front of him, her cheeks tinged with a shy blush. "Do I look pretty?" A gentle evening breeze swept by, and the cherry blossoms in the yard swirled lightly. brushing past the brows and eyes of the person before him. This ambiguous snowfall should have made his heart lose its rhythm, but something felt off. The one standing before him didn't seem like it should be her. He gazed at the face that appeared pure amidst the fluttering shower of petals. Yet within him, an endless tide of loathing and weariness toward her began to spread, but whenever these thoughts arose, a cacophony of 10,000 voices would swirl in his ears, his head throbbed with unbearable pain, the last trace of clarity in those dark eyes vanished completely. When he raised his eyes again, the corners of his lips curled up, and his gaze at Susan was tender and affectionate, beautiful. He must have been bewitched earlier. How could he not like his own fiancée? Jack felt like he might be sick. There were always two voices in his head. Susan was clearly his fiancée, everything told him so. He loved her deeply, but when he was with her, inappropriate thoughts would always pop up in his mind, telling him it wasn't right, that this person before him wasn't the right one. His headache grew worse and worse. No matter how much medicine he took, nothing worked. In the middle of the night, he stood in the kitchen, holding a knife. What was he going to do? Yes, he was going to chop himself in half. That way, there wouldn't be two voices in his head anymore. He received a phone call. Bro Joe, you should really rein in your fiancée. It's just inhumane for her to want to do this to Mia Smith. After all, she's her own sister. What kind of deep-seated grudge could drive someone to this? This friend of his operated in the gray areas between right and wrong, always privy to secrets that others couldn't access. Mia Smith, this name triggered countless fragmented images to flash through his mind, a dim, humid room filled with ambiguity, the black umbrella he raised amidst the roaring storm, that striking figure in the vast expanse of white snow. Jack's hand gripping the knife trembled violently, as if 10,000 steel needles had pierced his heart. A trapped beast rampaged wildly in his heart, blood-tinged tears welling at the corners of his eyes, wailing and screaming in agony, yet he still heard himself say mechanically, "I love her, and I support all her decisions." No, no, Jack suddenly felt like his world was one colossal mistake. Stumbling out, he floored the accelerator, and the car shot forward like an arrow. He didn't know where he was going, as if he had taken many detours. Eventually, he arrived, but it was far too late. Susan laughed wildly beside the girl. The girl's eyes gazed at the sky, brimming with pain and sorrow, yet the corners of her mouth curled into an eerie smile. Jack saw the numerous needle marks on her arms, her whole body in disarray. Her face remained indistinct in his mind, but at this moment, it suddenly bloomed in his heart, one after another, dripping with blood. Jack saw her kill someone. Susan shrank back, afraid to approach him. Finally, she mustered the courage to reach for his arm. "Jingzhou, this woman is vicious and shameless. She got what she deserved. She even tried to seduce you. I know you wouldn't blame me." Jack smiled faintly. He gently brushed away the stray strands of hair by Susan's temple. Susan felt a wave of relief and gave him a sweet smile. "Jingzhou, I was really scared just now. That bitch's screams were so disgusting they hurt my ears." "Yes," he said, his voice growing even softer. "I won't blame you. I'll kill you." He raised the knife that had been tightly gripped since leaving home. He and they all deserved to die, but he had to make them die first to pave the way. Susan's eyes widened, her legs went weak, and she collapsed to the ground. "Are you insane?" Her voice was shrill and piercing, yet Jack seemed not to hear it. An invisible force made him unable to hold the knife, so he stabbed himself twice first, then stabbed her once. Later, his blood ran dry, and he sank into a state of chaos. An aged voice awakened him. "I can let you start over once more, returning to the turning point of the second life, but you must sacrifice all your fortune as the chosen one of this small world. Are you willing?" Jack mustered his last ounce of strength and tightly grasped this lifeline. "Am willing. You are no longer favored by the world, and it is impossible for you to retain memories of reincarnation. That poor little girl, I won't erase her memories from this life." He paused briefly in thought. "I'll carve them into a book for her to take to the next life, as my compensation to her." Destiny turns the hands of time once more, and this time everything will change. The third life. For the first 20-some years of his life, Jack's world was a barren wasteland. He remained trapped in that hazy dream, year after year. The inside was gray and desolate, with no end to the mist. Only the figure he occasionally glimpsed like a reward was in color. He understood. He was waiting for someone. Who is it? He doesn't know. Until that day, she timidly held a spiked glass of wine, gazing at him. At this moment, the world began to awaken. Bells tolled at dusk, golden light danced, and the humming train veered off its tracks through illusions. He finally saw the distant destination. Flowers bloomed in profusion, bees buzzed, and butterflies fluttered. He took the wine glass and drank it all in one gulp. I will slowly tighten the giant net in my hands. Please don't be afraid. I love you, without a doubt. After hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.